Welcome to the Virtual Spring Meeting 2020, brought to you by the American Bar Association Antitrust Law Section. The Spring Meeting is the section's premier event, a multi-day celebration of learning and camaraderie. The Virtual Spring Meeting brings together the world's leading experts on competition, consumer protection, and privacy law, discussing the most compelling issues of the day. Enjoy the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gary Zanfagna. I'm moderating this program today. This is the last program of the 68th annual virtual spring meeting. I hope you all had a chance to participate and attend some of the programs over the last couple of weeks and some of the virtual receptions. Speaking of which, after this program, this half-an-hour program, I look forward to welcoming you to, inviting you to attend the virtual farewell reception for the spring meeting, and you can get there if you're unfamiliar with that. You can get there by clicking on the agenda item, the reception on the agenda list, or you can go to my CuriousAmalgam.com and get in that way. So anyway, that's by way of introduction. Let's get started on this program. I'm absolutely delighted that this program, which is Membership Matters, why it does. It's a terrific way to end a great week. I have a terrific group with me sitting around the table to talk about their experience and why participation in the antitrust section is important to them and their professional development and their overall practice of law. I'd like to go around the table and have them, the three people in my group here, introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of take the questioning and the dialogue from there. Let's start with Nora, who is the youngest member of the group here and the wisest of us all. Nora, go right ahead.
Sure. My name is Nora Wan. I am associated with Winston & Strawn's Washington, D.C. office. This is my first year practicing antitrust law, but this is my fourth year with the ABA antitrust law section. The reason is that I have been fortunate enough to join this community as early as possible, starting out as a law student liaison for 2 years. And then I have participated in some of the most exciting projects with the section, including the groundbreaking and now very popular weekly podcast called Our Curious Amalgam. So I felt I've been embraced since day one, and I've grown with the section. So I look forward to the many years to come with the ABA antitrust law section.
Great. Let's go to Judith, and then we'll go around that way. Judith.
Thanks, Gary. I'm Judith Saeed. I'm with Zell LLP in the San Francisco office. And I've been practicing antitrust on the plaintiff side since day one. And I've probably been a member of the section for about 18, 19 years. But I was looking back, I've been in leadership for 9. And it came as a stroke of luck when it happened to be Michael Hausfeld, a fellow plaintiff titan. He's the titan, I'm not. When he reached down and brought me onto a task force 9 years ago, and I ended up working on that task force. It was about civil redress, and it then turned into the Global Private Litigation Committee, and I was a vice chair, and I'm a co-chair. And so I've had the honor to be in this position for all these years, and I see myself as a ABAer for life alongside Gary and others. And so I'm excited to talk to you about why I appreciate being a member and involved in the leadership as we go on today.
Thanks, Judith. Jim, it's your turn. As the elder statesman of the crowd, what would you like to say?
Yeah, hi. As a government attorney, as in-house counsel, and as somebody in private practice, I'll try to make this short. I started in antitrust right out of law school at the Federal Trade Commission and the Bureau of Competition. At the time, the Hart-Scott-Rodino rules went into effect, so we did mergers and non-merger work at that time. So I became an antitrust attorney at that point. More times than I care to remember, I think it's a matter of national security that I can't tell you how long I've been a member of the antitrust law section. I think one of the great things of working in a federal agency like the Federal Trade Commission is that the employees really love the mission of the agency, both protecting consumers and protecting competition. And it's an agency that, with a chairman and 4 commissioners, has always been nonpartisan. So for employees, that's fantastic. And we've been very lucky that the commission has had a culture of the management really caring about the employees. I've been involved in the antitrust section, as I mentioned, since day one. The part that I loved the most participating in was the annual spring meeting, because that gave me the opportunity as an antitrust lawyer to become current in what the practice of law was. That was fantastic. I didn't become a member of the leadership of the antitrust law section until 2 years ago, when then Deb Garza, who was the chair, designated me to become the co-chair of the membership diversity and inclusion committee. We've been very active, and hopefully later on we'll talk a little bit more about what the committee has done.
Yes. So let me just say a couple things. First of all, I've been involved in the section for many years. I too, like Jim, have been in the government, and I am in-house right now. Most recently, I should say, and then I've been very involved in the section, and I've been also in a law firm. So what I have really found about the section that is so interesting is the cross section of folks that I've been able to kind of run across or work with, I should say, over the years. And I just think that it's, and I've seen that grow in my experience. Honora, I said this to you yesterday, I'm just amazed at, I mean, truthfully, when I was in law school, I didn't even know there was an antitrust section of the ABA. And so the fact that you got involved, tell us a little bit more about how you got involved, how you heard about it, et cetera. And then, you know, again, what your experience has been here.
Yeah, for sure. So I started as the student liaison, basically just by applying to a position I guess a lot of people have not paid attention to. But I would say the real kicker is the spring meeting, the very first spring meeting, when I was in law school, we jokingly referred to as the Antitrust Spring Carnival. And we attended as a student at a very low rate, which was $25, which I think would be the case still today if it's in person. Now it's even cheaper, it's free for everyone for this virtual spring meeting. And then I remember the very first spring meeting, I met so many practitioners that I can see spanning, like, you know, a very long career, someone 5 years into their career, someone 25 years into their career. I can see literally role models for me throughout my career. And then I felt so much encouraged that everyone that I met was so nice and welcoming, and not just like substance back then, which I did not understand much, and now I'm still learning, but also they're very kind to offer all kinds of advice on career development, such as like practice, get some litigation skill, to write, to publish, some advice that I'm following today. So I feel like all these positive experience, they have just reinforced my belief that I've made a good choice to join this community and then join this very welcoming group and try to learn from everyone.
Good. Judith. So I've actually had a chance to get to work with you a little bit more through a couple of programs we've done, through the private litigation program in Berlin, for example. That was a lot of fun. Tell us a little bit more about what it's meant to your practice to be involved. I mean, you're in San Francisco. Why are you, does your involvement in the Washington crowd, so to speak, is it bigger than that? Does it touch on your practice? What drives you to participate, other than to be in Berlin in a program with me? Why?
Why? So early on in my career, I started getting involved with, I wanted to be involved in bar associations anyway. And I started in the SF Bar Association and spent several years as an associate and my early years of my career just being local. And before CAFA, we, in California, we'd file in local court, we'd stay in local court. We had our great defense bar out there of Pillsbury and Shepherd Mullen and Gibson Dunn and others, and we knew everyone on both sides of the V. And then I think our practice has changed. I think ever since the early 2000s, things are national in scope. There was the whole East Coast bar that we had really not come across as much. And I also felt like, just even for my own personal growth within my own firm, I wanted to be someone who had a broader scope of connections. And so I jumped at the opportunity to get involved, particularly in the last decade. And I found that, like everyone has said or will say, the relationships on both sides of the V are so important. And I know that particularly for the plaintiff bar, we spend a lot of time encouraging our fellow plaintiff lawyers on the private practice side to get involved, because those who are in it and who really put a lot into it see what we get out of it. And it's hard sometimes from the outside to get the full extent of that, but we know on the inside that we are influencing the model jury instructions and the class action handbooks, and all of the publications that the section puts out are very influential to the judiciary and to practitioners and enforcers. And we found that over years, if we don't show up and make ourselves available and known and contribute, we're not giving ourselves the opportunity of inviting co-speakers, co-authors, getting a list. At one point, Bruce Simon and Hollis Salzman and I put together a list of plaintiff writers. So anytime someone had a periodical or a publication that they needed help with, they could go to our plaintiff list and actually find people, because they might not have the contacts that we have. So this is something that obviously we want to grow that momentum and have more plaintiff lawyers involved. And again, I'll preach it any chance I get, but I do think that, we've had the help of sometimes, we've had receptions where a judge has been present. We had Judge Tiger once talk to a group of plaintiff lawyers, and he spoke to how he thought the section was important for us to get involved in. And so we try to pick up on things where the rest of the antitrust community is giving that same encouragement. So I will continue to, and we also have programs that are amazing and that we try to invite plaintiff speakers on every panel so that the perspective is always balanced. So that's something that at least I personally and several others are trying to do.
I think that's an important, and I think I've seen that in my lifetime, that the programs, for example, at the spring meeting have been broader. They're not, you don't just hear the private defense firm's perspective on issues, but you have a broader perspective. And I think that's good for your practice. It's good for your learning. It's good for your understanding of the antitrust rules. And so I think that's in my time in the section, for sure, there's been a movement to try and be more inclusive of the plaintiff's bar. And I think we've been somewhat successful with that. We can do better, but I think it's an important balance that you see now that you didn't see several years back. Jim, I'm particularly interested, for example, you have had experience in the trifecta, right? And you've been a member of the bar, you've been a member of the antitrust section while you've been in-house, while you've been a government lawyer, while you've been a private lawyer. So how does the experience being involved in the antitrust section feel, or the value do you get, so to speak, from the different perspectives? They're very different perspectives in practice. I can attest to that myself. But I mean, what is it that you like about, or that you learn, or that you need, or you want as a participant in the antitrust section in each of those three very different practices of antitrust law? How are they different?
I think one of the things that I particularly enjoy as a government attorney. I think one of the benefits of being a government attorney is the fact that when you start out in the federal government right out of law school, you wind up having more authority, more involvement than a lot of attorneys who go into private practice. I remember the first incident that I had when I was working on a merger, and I was the lead attorney in my first year out of law school. And I issued a second request, and a lawyer came in trying to negotiate the terms of the second request. He happened to be the managing partner of Arnold and Porter. He was a very senior lawyer. He was the head of the antitrust law section at Arnold and Porter, and he came with 5 associates, all of whom were senior associates, and I'm the only person on the government side sitting across the table negotiating with him. And I said, wow, I like this. So I did that for a couple of years, really got my spurs in antitrust, and going in-house. My first job in-house was as antitrust counsel in a big global corporation. And I actually learned more antitrust in the corporate setting because of the fact that the corporation, being global, was involved in so many business areas that we covered every issue in antitrust you can think about. And I switched over to general corporate because I wanted to be a general counsel someday. After a number of years, I wound up rising to the level of becoming a chief legal officer and corporate officer of a public company. Then I came back to DC to go into private practice. And when the opportunity to come back to the Federal Trade Commission opened up, the FTC was having joint hearings with Department of Justice on single firm conduct. And so I came back for that because I could use my corporate experience and antitrust experience, which was just perfect. And so after a number of years in the Office of General Counsel at the FTC, I am now in the Office of Policy Planning, working on very interesting antitrust matters dealing with high-tech companies. So again, looking at the antitrust law section, there's a couple of things that I find critically important in the antitrust law section. One, the spring meetings and the programs at the spring meetings really bring you up to date on current developments, and you're listening to government, private practice, and corporate counsel with their various views on the relevant antitrust issues. The networking is fantastic. There has been a huge increase in the number of international participants. That's fantastic. I was a young lawyer at one point in my life, but back then we did not have the involvement of the young lawyers like we have now in law school and just starting their practice. And I think that's fantastic. I think networking, mentoring, a lot of activities. People who are in the antitrust law section do want to work with younger lawyers and give them the benefit of your experience, help them networking with people that you know can help them in their careers. I find that fantastic. And that's why joining the committee that I am now the co-chair of, particularly in the diversity and inclusion area, is really fantastic. So the fact that the antitrust law section is intimately involved in that, I find tremendous.
Good. Judith, tell me a little bit about, we talked about this yesterday. One of the interesting parts about the antitrust section is how we're trying to focus more on and draw international interest in our section, in our leadership, in the programming. We are taking our programs, like I mentioned earlier. You and I actually did a private lawyers program in Berlin. Who would have thought? Let's talk about that a little bit. I think the antitrust section is really expanding its wings from the international, front.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So what was amazing about, this effort to start this new committee that was called Global Private Litigation, and it came out of just the changing environment that all these jurisdictions and different international jurisdictions were starting to adopt, either class action or collective action measures. And there's the damage, all the different damages initiatives that have come out of Europe and other countries. And so, again, Larry Sorkin and Michael Husfeld sort of had this vision. And now years later, we've all been able to put this into place where there's the Criminal Cartels Conference that happens every 2 years. And the counter to that is now the Global Private Litigation Conference, which is international. It tends to be focused more on civil litigators instead of criminal enforcement or, the
Right.
criminal aspect of things. And it has been, I think it's been amazing. It's supposed to, and we have put into place measures to make it a draw for civil practitioners around the globe, both plaintiff and defense equally. And so all of our content is aimed at, practical advice and all different programming that any one of us, whether you're practicing in the US or abroad, who has these types of damages actions could get something out of it. And we've found that our universe is getting so much smaller that we now have friends in all these different jurisdictions. And we, the fact that we can call upon, our fellow claimant lawyers in Germany and France and UK and Netherlands is just amazing. And that never would have happened had we not been in the section and had these types of events. So we are asking people to put a little note, hopefully, God willing, COVID is under control by June of next year. We're supposed to be in Copenhagen on, I want to get it exactly right, June 14th.
Oh, that's good. Nice plug.
2021. To make sure I got the right date. And yeah, we're just starting to think about it now. And we had a great time 2 years ago in Berlin. And so you'll be hearing more about that for sure.
Great. That's great. Anora. Tell me what you think is the most beneficial part of your current practice that you're because you're involved in the section. What is that? What's the best part for you in terms of how it helps your practice? You're young, right? I mean, you have a lot to learn, et cetera. I mean, we all have a lot to learn, but I mean, you're just starting, right? And so it's a big deal to be a part of that. I felt it was important when I was your age, so to speak. But tell me how you benefit from that. How do you use it?
Yeah, I think I would highlight two things because they do go hand in hand. First is that I think overall, I just benefit greatly from the opportunities that I've been given to work on projects and to help even create a project. So that's really telling because not all communities or groups are like that. And I feel like the antitrust law section is very, very impressive. At least, on two fronts to me. First, the section is very, very much responsive and willing to listening in feedback and new ideas. I just learned yesterday that our very, very much trendy podcast right now, that Our Curious Amalgam had some, I guess, original link to a report that I gave when I was a law student liaison. I was very flattered and honored. Not that I'm going to take credit for it, but I feel like
I think you should take credit for it.
But when you wish for something and then it becomes true, you would be impressed. And then that's how I felt about the fact that the section is willing to put out a new create and basically give opportunities to young lawyers or just people or young economists to also be involved with these new opportunities. So those two things, I think one is how responsive the section is and second is how willing the section is to give opportunities to young professionals. Those two things are the most beneficial aspects, I think, that I currently, and I hope I would continue to benefit from. Yeah,
well, we'll certainly benefit from your involvement. So I wanted to just make a plug for the section for a second. This was the first time we've done a virtual spring meeting, right? And we certainly would not want our our regular spring meeting to change, right? I mean, it's pretty great when you get 3,000 plus people, in one building together for a couple of days. It's very special. But that being said, this virtual spring meeting I found to be really interesting, really helpful, and it had certain benefits that the in-person meetings don't have. Like, for example, I got a lot of feedback from younger lawyers, younger international lawyers, and they said, "Wow, we just love the fact that we could log in, we could go to these virtual receptions. We weren't able to go to the spring meeting in Washington, because we were younger, associated, in Europe, so to speak, or wherever they were around the world, but they could plug in." And I think that's a really neat function. And my point of saying it is, I think what's a really neat aspect of the antitrust section of the American Bar Association is that we're very nimble. I mean, we're very forward thinking, and are willing to adjust and be current with what we're facing as lawyers and as practitioners. That is, I think, to the antitrust section's real credit. And I just think that it shouldn't be lost on us that an enormous amount of effort by the staff and by the volunteer, leadership of the antitrust section put together this program for a couple of weeks. I mean, they overnight, they turned what was a disaster, really, in terms of our programming and the ability to get all this programming that had been put together for members, get a lot of it out there. And by the way, I'll just make one more plug on this, and then I'll finish my point. There's going to be programs all next month that will be other programs that had been put together for the spring meeting that didn't make it onto the charts for these last 2 weeks, but they will be meted out, and so pay attention to that. Look for that over the next month. But I just wanted to plug the section for what a great organization it is to be a part of, because we are constantly evolving, constantly moving, constantly adjusting and learning from our situations. And I just think it's great to be I think it is great to be a part of an organization that is so nimble and is so willing to reach out and make changes and adjust and try and provide for its members in ways that the members are looking for. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from folks who are like, "This is really neat stuff." I mean, it may not be the normal way we do things, but we learned a lot and we participated, and so it's a good thing. It's a really good thing, and it's a tribute to I think the talent that we have in our antitrust section that all the members are participating in. So I wanted to make that plug. I think I'm not sure how much we're running out of time yet. I got not much time actually, but I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but is there anything else, Jim, for example, that you would like to say about, your involvement? You're on my leadership team, and I'm looking forward to leading with you this coming year. And what you're looking forward to in the coming year, that more of the same participation, getting back to normal. I think the antitrust section will have a very important part of your professional future when we put things back together. Any other final comments you'd like to say, and Judith and also Nora as well, before we close it out, in terms of final thoughts on your feeling about the section?
Well, let me tell you a couple of things about what my committee has been doing. We were very actively involved. We had two critically important people in our committee who put together the Women Connected Committee, and that's such a fantastic organization. The work that they did and how they connected young women and more senior practitioners, bringing them together and getting them to feel comfortable with each other, networking, receptions. I mean, that's just fantastic. So my committee is now moving to the next stage, looking at the diversity element, the men and women of color, and those who, we're looking at the pipeline, we're looking at law schools. We have a law student ambassador program. We have the young lawyers. We have a variety of sections. We have a mentorship program, which is really well connected, and it's fantastic. So what we are doing as a section is tremendous. and what the leadership is promoting, and the support that we're getting from the ABA staff is just incredible, and that's just wonderful. So I'm happy to be a member. I'm happy to be part of the leadership team.
Great, great. Any final thoughts, Judith?
Yeah, I didn't want to go over, but I would just say also that, one of the things I appreciated early on is that there are so many opportunities to contribute to things. And I always saw those as opportunities to meet people who I wanted to meet. So you can come up with a newsletter idea, pick some amazing co-authors, and then reach out to them. And there aren't many chances for you to just call up someone that you might want to meet, you think they do interesting work, or they're influential in certain ways. You can do all of that in these publications as co-panelists. And so you can get a lot out of it. And I always found that that's something that's overlooked a little bit. And I think it's an important factor that you just have to call me up, and our committee will publish a newsletter that you might have an interest to write. So there's a lot of opportunities for that.
Thank you. Nora, you have two things. You can add anything you want, and then you're going to close us for the day. And frankly, you're going to close the whole spring meeting program process. So that's a lot of pressure on such a prestigious, talented young person. So anyway, any final thoughts, and then please close us out.
Thanks. This is really an honor, and frankly, a little pressure. So I better cover all the ground. I would be basically telling you my wish list. There are 3 things I really look forward to happen with the section in the following year. First is that there is going to be more networking events, in person or virtual. I look forward, when it was in person in Washington, D.C., we always have a great attendance. So I really enjoy every moment that we get together and see people, old friends and new. And then I look forward to more events like that. Could be in person, could be virtual. And then second thing is that I'm always excited about the new episode, the new ideas that we're going to release through the Our Curious Amalgam platform. And whatever format it's going to take the next time, it could be even more than a podcast. I'm just very excited about what it could become in the future. And then third, I guess, slightly personal, but also I think it's encouraging, very encouraging to my fellow junior young lawyer and young professional, is that the publications that I get to be involved with. Right now, I'm at co-editing, I'm contributing to comments and book chapters. I think those are opportunities available for people who are as junior as I am. You can contribute in any way that you can. And then frankly, when you see something, bearing your name, and then with the section's name, and it's public, it's official, you feel like you do
cool.
have early on in your career, you have some accomplishment. So I think all of those, I guess, they make a pretty full picture of what members can achieve and can realize through the section. I think these are all very wonderful opportunities and exciting, and I look forward to seeing all my friends and maybe new friends in the section through these opportunities.
Thank you, Nora. You want to say goodbye to everybody?
Yes, thank you for attending the virtual spring meeting. And then this would be the last panel. Oh, I feel a little nostalgic already. But really, thank you for everyone for listening in and for joining us. Until next time.